The massive council chamber stretched across 3 miles of polished crystal floor. Thousands of alien beings filled the curved seats that rose up like a giant bowl toward the ceiling. Strange sounds filled the air as different species talked in their own languages. Clicks, whistles, deep rumbles, and high-pitched singing mixed together in a noise that would drive most humans crazy. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the small human section, trying not to fall asleep. He had been coming to these meetings for 8 months now. Every single day, the same aliens said the same things about the same problems. Today was no different. Ambassador Lisa Carter sat next to Jake, writing notes on her tablet. She looked tired. Her brown hair was pulled back in a neat style, but Jake could see the stress lines around her green eyes. Lisa had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 2 years. Jake wondered how she stayed sane. "Order, order," called the council speaker. The tall, thin creature looked like a walking stick bug, but was twice the size of a human. His name was something that sounded like clicking glass, so humans just called him Speaker 9. "We will continue our discussion about the human expansion problem." Jake rolled his eyes. The human expansion problem. That's what they called it when humans built homes on empty planets and started families. The aliens acted like humans were some kind of disease spreading across the galaxy. The first speaker was Ambassador Kethvar from the Zephyrian Empire. His body was made of living crystal that changed colors when he talked. Right now he was glowing angry red. "The humans continue to ignore proper procedures," Kethvar said, his voice sounding like wind chimes in a storm. "They land on planets without waiting for environmental studies. They build cities without filing the correct forms. They act without thinking about the consequences." Jake wanted to laugh. Environmental studies that took 20 years to complete. Forms that needed approval from 15 different alien governments. The Zephyrians thought 3 months was rushing things. Next came the Christek representative, a being that looked like a walking mountain of blue-green rock. "The Christek Council has reviewed human behavior for the past standard year," the creature rumbled. "Humans make decisions too quickly. They do not spend enough time thinking about each choice. We suggest putting monitoring stations around all your human worlds to help them slow down their decision-making process." Lisa leaned over to Jake and whispered, "Monitoring stations. They want to spy on every human colony." "Of course they do," Jake whispered back. "Can't have humans making choices without alien permission." The Nebulan spoke next. These aliens were made of gas held together by energy fields. They looked like colorful clouds with faces. "The Nebulan Collective has concerns about human military vessels," the being said in a voice like singing wind. "Human ships move through space without asking permission. They do not file flight plans with the proper authorities. This causes worry among peaceful species." Jake had heard enough. He started to stand up, but Lisa grabbed his arm. "Not yet," she whispered. "We have to follow the rules." "They're rules," Jake said quietly. "Rules designed to keep everyone talking, forever and never actually doing anything." More aliens spoke. The Corvan Empire complained about human trade practices. Humans sold goods directly to other species without going through the proper trade councils. The Altarians were upset that human diplomats didn't spend enough time in formal greeting ceremonies. Humans wanted to get straight to business instead of following ancient rituals. Each speaker took at least 30 minutes to say things that could be said in 30 seconds. They used fancy words and long sentences that meant nothing. Jake counted 17 different ways the aliens said humans act too fast without actually saying those words. Finally, Speaker 9 called on Lisa. "Ambassador Carter, you may present the human position." Lisa stood up and walked to the center of the chamber. All eyes turned to her. Thousands of alien eyes in every color and shape imaginable. She looked small and alone in the middle of the huge space. "Thank you, Speaker 9, Lisa said. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber's sound system. "The United Earth government appreciates the concerns raised by our galactic neighbors. However, we must respectfully point out that we have been discussing these same issues for over 3 years. Angry sounds came from the alien sections. Kethvar flashed bright red. The Christek representative made a noise like grinding rocks. "Humans value efficiency," Lisa continued. "When we see a problem, we work to solve it. When we find an empty planet that could be a good home, we build that home. When our people need protection, we protect them. We do not see this as reckless behavior. We see it as taking care of our families. But the proper procedures must be followed, called out the Altarian Chancellor. There are rules that have guided galactic civilization for thousands of years. Forms must be filed. Studies must be completed. Committees must review all decisions. And while you study and file forms and hold committee meetings, Lisa said, human families are building homes and living their lives. We cannot put our entire civilization on hold while bureaucrats debate our right to exist freely in the galaxy. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens clicked, whistled, rumbled, and sang their disapproval. Some species had never heard anyone speak so directly in a council meeting. Speaker 9 banged his ceremonial staff against the crystal floor. Order. We must maintain proper decorum. It took 15 minutes for the chamber to quiet down. Jake watched Lisa stand calmly in the center of the chaos. She didn't look nervous or afraid. She looked determined. The human delegation requests a recess to consider our next steps, Lisa said when the noise finally died down. Very well, Speaker 9 replied. We will reconvene in 3 days to continue our vital discussions about human integration into galactic society. Jake and Lisa walked out of the chamber together. Neither of them spoke until they reached their private transport. How much longer? Are we going to keep doing this? Jake asked as they settled into their seats. Lisa stared out the window at the alien city below them. Tall spires reached toward the stars, beautiful but somehow cold and lifeless. Not much longer, she said quietly. I think it's time Earth made some decisions of its own. 3 days later, the Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than usual. Word had spread that the humans might actually say something interesting this time. Alien diplomats who normally skipped the human discussions had shown up to see what would happen. Jake Morrison stood at the back of the human section wearing his dress uniform. The dark blue jacket with gold trim made him look official and important. Next to him, Commander Alex Turner from Earth's Strategic Command checked his watch. Alex was a big man with gray hair and serious eyes that missed nothing. Ambassador Lisa Carter sat in the front row, a single sheet of paper in her hands. She had spent the last 3 days on secure communications with Earth. The message that came back was short and clear. Do what you think is best. Earth supports whatever decision you make. Speaker 9 called the session to order. We will continue our discussion about human behavioral modification protocols. Several committees have prepared preliminary reports about possible solutions to the human problem. The first speaker was a vegan representative, a tall alien with purple skin and 4 arms. The Vegan Science Council has developed an education program for humans. We believe that proper instruction can teach humans to make decisions more slowly and carefully. Jake almost laughed out loud. Aliens wanted to send humans to school to learn how to think like aliens. The second speaker was from the Tau Ceti system. Our legal experts have drafted new treaties that would require humans to wait 6 months before making any major decisions. This cooling-off period would prevent rash actions. More aliens spoke about their wonderful plans to fix the human problem. They wanted to put human colonies under alien supervision. They wanted human ships to carry alien observers who would make sure humans didn't do anything too quickly. They wanted humans to ask permission before having children, building homes, or starting businesses. Finally, Speaker 9 looked toward the human section. Ambassador Carter, the Council would like to hear the official human response to these generous proposals. Lisa stood up slowly. The chamber grew quiet as she walked to the central speaking platform. Her heels clicked against the crystal floor, the only sound in the huge space. She carried just that single sheet of paper. When she reached the platform, Lisa looked around the chamber. Thousands of alien faces stared back at her. Some looked curious. Others looked annoyed that humans were taking up their time. A few looked worried as if they could sense something was about to change. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, Lisa began, her voice clear and strong. The United Earth government has carefully considered all the proposals, suggestions, and demands that have been made regarding human activities in the galaxy. She paused and looked down at the paper in her hands. After 3 years, 4 months, and 18 days of discussions, debates, committee meetings, and formal protests, Earth has reached a decision about how to proceed. The chamber was so quiet Jake could hear his own heartbeat. The United Earth. Government hereby announces that we will no longer participate in any discussions about limiting human expansion, human activities, or human rights in the galaxy. All negotiations on these topics are finished. We consider the matter closed. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the chamber exploded into chaos. Ambassador Kethvar flashed bright red and orange. This is impossible. The Council has not reached consensus. No decision can be made without proper voting procedures. The Krestek representative made sounds like an earthquake. Humans cannot simply ignore galactic law. There are established protocols that must be followed. Lisa waited for the noise to die down, then continued speaking. Earth recognizes the right of all species to govern themselves as they see fit. We extend the same courtesy to others that we expect for ourselves. However, we will no longer ask permission to live our lives. Commander Turner stepped forward from the back of the chamber. His military bearing was obvious even to aliens who didn't understand human body language. The human position is simple. We came to the stars as free people. We will remain free people. Anyone who wants to work with us as equals is welcome. Anyone who wants to control us is not. The Altarian Chancellor clicked his mandibles rapidly. But this sets a terrible precedent. What if other young species decide to ignore Council authority? What if everyone stops following proper procedures? Jake Morrison walked down to join Lisa and Alex at the central platform. Then maybe you'll spend less time talking and more time actually solving problems. The proper procedures exist for good reasons, Speaker 9 said, his voice shaking with emotion. They prevent conflicts, they ensure all voices are heard, they maintain peace and order. Your procedures, Lisa replied, have kept you talking about the same problems for decades without solving anything. While you debate whether humans should be allowed to build homes on empty planets, human families are already living in those homes and raising their children. The Nebulan representative made a sound like wind through broken glass. But what about environmental impact studies? What about cultural compatibility assessments? What about long-term population projections? What about them? Alex Turner asked. Humans have been studying planets for 200 years. We know how to build cities without destroying ecosystems. We know how to live peacefully with our neighbors. We don't need alien committees to tell us how to take care of our own people. More aliens tried to speak at once. Their voices mixed together in a noise that sounded like a zoo at feeding time. Some demanded that humans be expelled from the Council. Others wanted to send military forces to make humans follow the rules. A few suggested putting all human worlds under quarantine until humans learn to behave properly. Lisa held up her hand for silence. Amazingly, the chamber grew quiet again. Let me be very clear about Earth's position, she said. We did not come here to ask permission to exist. We came here to be good neighbors and work together with other species for mutual benefit. But we will not be governed by aliens who think 3 years is a reasonable amount of time to decide whether humans deserve basic rights. She looked around the chamber one more time. Any species that wants to trade with Earth, work with Earth, or be friends with Earth will find us excellent partners. We are reasonable people who want to get along with everyone. But the time for discussions about our fundamental rights is over. We have work to do, families to raise, and worlds to build. We will not spend another day asking permission to live our lives. Lisa walked away from the platform. Jake and Alex followed her. The 3 humans left the chamber while thousands of aliens sat in shocked silence. Outside in the corridor, Lisa finally smiled. How do you think that went? Jake asked. I think, Lisa said, that we just changed everything. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours of the human announcement, emergency meetings began on every major alien world. Species that had spent centuries in careful, slow deliberation suddenly found themselves trying to make quick decisions about what to do with humans who no longer wanted to talk. On the Zephyrian homeworld, crystal spires vibrated with urgent communications. Emperor Zethkal called together his highest advisors in the Crystal Palace. The meeting room glowed with angry red light as the Zephyrian leaders discussed the crisis. "This cannot be allowed to stand," declared General Vexthor, his crystalline body flashing orange with rage. "If humans can simply ignore council authority, what stops every young species from doing the same thing? We will have chaos across the galaxy." "Agreed," said Admiral Kethamar. "We must show immediate force. Send our battle fleets to human space, blockade their trade routes, make them understand that they cannot survive without following proper galactic procedures." The Emperor's own crystal form pulsed with deep blue thoughts. But what if they resist? Humans have proven to be surprisingly capable fighters, and their technology advances much faster than ours. "They are just one species," General Vexthor replied. "We have the backing of the entire Galactic Council. No single species can stand against the combined might of galactic civilization." Meanwhile, on the gas giant home of the Nebulans, floating cities drifted through colorful storms while their leaders sang songs of distress. The harmonic vibrations could be heard across 3 star systems as the Nebulans struggled to understand what humans had done. "Never in our history has a species simply walked away from negotiations," sang Elder Zephin, her voice like wind through cosmic dust. "The proper way is to discuss, to debate, to find harmony through endless conversation. Humans have broken the very foundation of civilized behavior." "What if they are right?" sang a younger voice from the storm clouds. "What if talking for years without action is not the best way? What if quick decisions sometimes work better than slow ones?" The elder's song turned harsh and discordant. "Do not speak such dangerous thoughts. The old ways have kept peace for thousands of years. Humans threaten everything we have built with their reckless speed and violent decisiveness." In the deep rock cities of the Christek homeworld, the Parliament of Stones had been in meditation for 6 days straight. The ancient beings, some over 10,000 years old, had never encountered a problem that required fast thinking. Their entire civilization was built on the idea that good decisions took centuries to make. Finally, the Prime Stone spoke, his voice like grinding mountains. "The human situation cannot be solved through normal thinking. They move too fast for our processes. They make choices in days that should take decades. Perhaps we must consider emergency procedures." "Emergency procedures have not been used in 4,000 years, rumbled another ancient voice. "Are we truly facing a crisis that requires such drastic measures?" "When a species abandons all proper behavior and threatens the stability of galactic civilization," the Prime Stone replied, "yes, we face such a crisis. But it was on Earth where the biggest changes began to happen." Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, reading the message that had just arrived from Earth Command. The transmission was brief and to the point. "Diplomatic phase complete. Resume normal operations under Earth authority. Defend human interests as you see fit." Kate smiled as she handed the message to her second-in-command, Commander Ryan Brooks. "Finally," Ryan said after reading it, "I was getting tired of asking alien permission to protect our own shipping lanes." "Signal the fleet," Kate ordered. "All ships are to resume standard patrol duties. We are no longer bound by Galactic Council movement restrictions." Within hours, human ships across the galaxy began moving freely through space. Cargo vessels that had been waiting weeks for alien-approved flight plans simply started their journeys. Colony ships that had been stuck in bureaucratic procedures began landing on their target worlds. Military vessels took up defensive positions around human settlements without filing requests with alien authorities. The panic truly began when the aliens realized that humans were not just talking about independence, they were actually living it. Captain Jake Morrison received the new orders while his ship was docked at the council station. The message was simple: escort the colony convoy to New Texas, establish permanent patrol base, protect colonists by any means necessary. Jake looked at the massive colony ships preparing to leave the station. 15,000 human families were aboard those vessels, ready to start new lives on a world the Galactic Council had declared under environmental review for the past 12 years. "Lieutenant Dana Walsh," Jake called to his communications officer. "Send a message to Station Control. Inform them that the human convoy is departing on schedule. We are not requesting permission. We are informing them as a courtesy. Dana's eyes widened. Sir, they're going to demand we follow proper departure procedures. The Zephyrian Port Authority will probably try to stop us. Let them try, Jake said. We're done asking permission to go home. The Zephyrian port commander was indeed outraged. His crystal form flashed angry red as he sent message after message demanding that the humans halt their departure. You cannot leave without proper clearances. There are 73 forms that must be completed. Environmental committees must approve your destination. Cultural impact studies must be filed. Jake's response was simple. Thank you for your concern. The convoy is now departing. Please clear all traffic from departure Route 7. When the Zephyrian commander realized the humans were serious, he called for military backup. 3 Zephyrian cruisers moved to block the convoy's path. That was when the aliens learned something important about humans. When humans said they were done talking, they really meant it. The human escort ships moved smoothly into defensive formation around the colony vessels. Jake opened communications with the Zephyrian fleet commander. This is Captain Morrison of the United Earth Fleet, he said calmly. You have exactly 60 seconds to move your ships out of our path. After that, we will consider your presence an act of aggression against human civilians. The Zephyrian commander was used to dealing with species that would spend months negotiating before taking any action. He expected the humans to file protests, demand council meetings, and argue about proper procedures. Instead, at exactly 61 seconds, the human ships opened fire. The engagement lasted less than 5 minutes. Human weapons technology, developed through decades of practical experience rather than committee studies, proved devastatingly effective. The Zephyrian ships found their shields overwhelmed and their weapons systems disabled before they could mount an effective response. Jake made sure no aliens were killed, but he also made sure they understood the new rules. The disabled Zephyrian ships were towed clear of the departure route, their crews rescued and their weapons permanently disabled. Please inform your commanders, Jake told the rescued Zephyrian officers, that humans no longer require permission to defend our families. Anyone who threatens human civilians will face immediate and decisive consequences. News of the encounter spread across the galaxy within hours. Species that had spent millennia talking their way through every problem suddenly realized they were dealing with beings who preferred action to endless discussion. The age of alien control over human affairs was over. The age of human independence had begun with the sound of weapons fire and the sight of disabled alien warships drifting helplessly in space. And in the great halls of the Galactic Council, thousands of aliens sat in emergency session, trying desperately to figure out how to deal with a species that had stopped listening to their rules. 2 months after humanity's declaration of independence, the galaxy was learning what it meant when humans said the talking was over. Every day brought new reports of human activities that completely ignored alien authority. The established galactic powers watched in growing alarm as their carefully maintained system of control began to crumble. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the UES Frontier, watching the massive colony ship New Horizon descend through the atmosphere of the planet the humans had named New Dakota. The world was beautiful. Green forests, blue oceans, and golden plains that stretched to distant mountains. It was exactly the kind of place human families dreamed of calling home. Sir, we're receiving angry transmissions from the Zephyrian patrol fleet, reported Lieutenant Dana Walsh from the bridge communication station. They're demanding we stop all landing operations immediately. They say this planet is still under environmental review by the Galactic Council. Jake looked down at the surface where human families were already unloading their belongings and setting up temporary shelters. Children ran around the landing site laughing and playing in the fresh air of their new world. Parents worked together to establish the basic infrastructure their community would need. How long has this planet been under review? Jake asked. 15 years, sir, Dana replied. The Council's Environmental Committee has been studying the potential impact of colonization since 2387. 15 years to decide if humans can live on an empty planet, Jake said, shaking his head. Acknowledge the Zephyrian transmission. Inform them that New Dakota is now under Earth protection, and they're welcome to file a complaint with whatever committee they like. But the Zephyrians were not content to file complaints. 3 heavy cruisers broke formation from their patrol route and moved to intercept the human colony ships. Their commander, Admiral Zeph Kor, was one of the old-school Zephyrian officers who believed that aliens should control every aspect of galactic civilization. Human vessels, this is Admiral Zeph Kor of the Imperial Zephyrian Fleet, came the transmission. You are operating in violation of Galactic Council Resolution 4457B, Environmental Protection Protocol 23, and Colonial Settlement Regulation 891. Cease your illegal activities immediately or face the consequences. Jake studied the tactical display showing the approaching alien ships. The Zephyrian cruisers were larger than his escort vessels, but he had learned not to judge military effectiveness by size alone. Dana, patch me through to Admiral Sullivan's task force. They should be about 6 hours out from our position. Connection. Established, sir. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice came through clearly. Jake, we're tracking the Zephyrian approach. Are they actually threatening human civilians? That's how I read the situation, Admiral. They're ordering us to abandon the colony operation and leave the system. Understood. We're increasing speed and should be there in 4 hours. Can you handle things until then? Jake looked back at the planet's surface where more families were coming down from the colony ship. A group of teenagers had found a stream and were splashing in the water, enjoying the freedom of an entire world to explore. We'll handle it, Jake said. The Zephyrian ships continued their approach, clearly expecting the humans to follow traditional galactic protocols. In the normal course of events, the threatened species would contact the Galactic Council, file formal protests, and spend months in diplomatic negotiations while their civilians remained in danger. Instead, Jake Morrison did what humans had always done when their families were threatened. He protected them. The UES Frontier and her 2 escort ships, UES Guardian and UES Shield, moved to intercept the Zephyrian fleet. Jake's ships were outnumbered and outgunned according to traditional calculations. But Jake had something the aliens didn't understand. Experience gained through decades of fighting pirates, raiders, and hostile alien species who thought humans were easy targets. This is Captain Morrison, Jake broadcast to the Zephyrian ships. You have entered the New Dakota system with hostile intent. You have 30 seconds to change course and leave this system before we consider your presence an act of war against Earth. Admiral Zeph Kor's response showed how little aliens understood about human determination. Foolish human. You cannot threaten the Imperial fleet. We have 3 heavy cruisers against your small escort vessels. Surrender now and submit to proper authority. Jake counted down the seconds. At exactly 31 seconds, he gave the order that changed everything. All ships weapons free. Protect the colony. The battle was short, decisive, and completely one-sided. The Zephyrians had spent centuries building ships designed to look impressive and intimidate other species into submission. They had never fought an enemy that struck first and asked questions later. Human weapons developed through practical combat experience cut through Zephyrian shields like paper. Human tactics, refined through countless battles against real enemies, outmaneuvered the alien ships before they could respond effectively. Human training, based on protecting what they loved rather than enforcing bureaucratic rules, proved devastatingly superior to alien military doctrine. In less than 10 minutes, all 3 Zephyrian cruisers were disabled and drifting in space. Their weapons were destroyed, their engines were offline, and their crews were trapped aboard powerless vessels. But Jake Morrison was not interested in slaughter. He was interested in sending a message. This is Captain Morrison to the Zephyrian fleet, he broadcast. We are sending rescue ships to evacuate your crews. Your vessels will be towed out of the New Dakota system. You will not be harmed, but you will not be welcome to return. Admiral Zeph Kor's voice was filled with disbelief. This is impossible. The Imperial fleet does not lose to inferior vessels. Our ships are the most advanced in the galaxy. Your ships, Jake replied calmly, were designed by committees who never fought a real battle. Our ships were designed by people who understand that in combat, the enemy gets a vote. We built our vessels to win fights, not to impress bureaucrats. The Rescue operation took 3 hours. Human medical teams worked alongside human engineers to save every alien life they could. Not a single Zephyrian crew member was harmed, despite their attempt to threaten human civilians. When Admiral Sullivan's task force arrived, they found the new Dakota system completely secure. The colony operation was proceeding smoothly, with more families landing every hour. The disabled Zephyrian ships had been towed to the edge of the system, and their crews returned safely to their own space. "Effective work," Admiral Sullivan told Jake during their briefing. "How did they react when they realized they'd lost?" "About how you'd expect," Jake replied. "Lots of talk about impossible outcomes and violations of proper procedure. I think they're having trouble accepting that their military doctrine doesn't work against enemies who shoot back." Word of the new Dakota battle spread across the galaxy, faster than the Zephyrians could control the narrative. Species that had never challenged alien authority suddenly realized that the great powers were not as powerful as they pretended to be. More importantly, younger species began to ask uncomfortable questions. If humans could ignore council authority and win military battles against established powers, what was stopping other species from doing the same thing? The Corvan Trade Confederation announced they were withdrawing from several restrictive council trade agreements. The Altarian colonies declared independence from their homeworld government. 3 minor species that had been waiting decades for council approval to establish new settlements simply started building them anyway. In the great council chambers, Speaker 9 called emergency session after emergency session, but the aliens were discovering something that humans had known for centuries. Once people taste freedom, they don't want to give it back. The galaxy was changing, and all the committees in the universe couldn't stop it. Humanity had shown that action worked better than endless talk, and the lesson was spreading to every corner of known space. The age of alien bureaucracy was ending. The age of practical solutions was just beginning. 6 months after humanity ended all discussions with the Galactic Council, the galaxy had settled into a new reality that terrified the old powers and inspired the younger species. The established order that had ruled for thousands of years was crumbling, and nothing the ancient bureaucracies did could put it back together. Ambassador Lisa Carter sat in her new office aboard the diplomatic station Freedom's Gate, orbiting Earth. Through the large viewport, she could see the blue-green planet where humanity had been born, and beyond it the stars where humans now lived free from alien oversight. Her desk was covered with reports from across human space, and every single one told the same story. Colonies were thriving, trade was booming, and for the first time in decades, pirates thought twice before attacking human ships. "Ambassador, the Altarian delegation is here for their appointment," announced Corporal Ben Taylor, her new aide. Ben was young, eager, and had volunteered for diplomatic service after hearing about humanity's Declaration of Independence. "Send them in, Ben, and remember what we discussed about these meetings." Ben nodded seriously. "Yes, ma'am. Straight answers, clear decisions, no endless discussions." The Altarian delegation entered the office looking nervous. These insect-like beings were used to diplomatic meetings that lasted for days and involved complex rituals. They had specifically requested to meet with humans outside of the Galactic Council's oversight, which was a historic first for their species. Chancellor Vextar clicked his mandibles respectfully. "Ambassador Carter, the Altarian Republic thanks you for agreeing to meet with us. We wish to discuss the possibility of establishing direct trade agreements between our species." Lisa gestured for them to sit down. "Of course, Chancellor. What kind of trade relationship are you interested in?" The Chancellor looked confused by the direct question. That is, we have prepared 17 different proposal documents for your consideration. Our Trade Council has spent months developing various options for mutual cooperation." "That's very thorough," Lisa said. "But let me save us all some time. Are you interested in buying human-manufactured goods? Are you interested in selling Altarian products to human colonies? Do you want to establish regular shipping routes between our territories?" "Yes," the Chancellor replied, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Yes to all of those things. But surely we must discuss the proper procedures, the regulatory frameworks, the impact studies." Lisa smiled. Chancellor, here's how human trade agreements work. If you want to buy our goods, we'll sell them to you at fair prices. If you want to sell us your goods, we'll buy them if we need them. We'll establish shipping routes that are efficient and safe. Our merchants will treat your people honestly, and we expect the same in return. Does that sound reasonable? The Altarian delegation exchanged confused clicks. This was the fastest trade negotiation in their history. But what about the Trade Commission oversight? What about the cultural exchange protocols? What about the environmental impact assessments? If you want to set up cultural exchange programs, we're happy to discuss that, Lisa said. If you have environmental concerns about specific trade goods, we can address those issues as they come up. But we're not going to spend 2 years in committee meetings before we start doing business. Chancellor Vexitar was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, "The Altarian Republic accepts these terms. When can we begin?" "How about next week?" The Chancellor's mandibles nearly fell off his face. "Next week? But that's incredibly fast." "That's incredibly human," Lisa replied. "Ben, please schedule a follow-up meeting to work out the practical details." After the Altarians left, still clicking in amazement at the speed of human decision-making, Captain Jake Morrison entered the office. He was carrying a datapad filled with reports from the Outer Rim territories. "How are things out there?" Lisa asked. Jake sat down and pulled up the latest intelligence reports. "The old powers are still trying to figure out what happened to them. The Zephyrian Empire has been in emergency session for 3 months, trying to decide how to respond to their defeat at New Dakota. The Christek Parliament is still meditating on the philosophical implications of humans ignoring proper procedures." "And the younger species?" "That's where things get interesting," Jake said, with a grin. "The Corvin Trade Confederation just told the Council they're suspending all treaty negotiations that have been ongoing for more than 5 years. They want to try the human approach of making decisions and seeing if they work." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "How is the Council handling that?" "About as well as you'd expect. Speaker 9 called an emergency session to discuss the proper procedures for species that want to abandon proper procedures. They've been debating that circular logic for 6 weeks now." Jake scrolled through more reports. The Torathans declared independence from their home system government last month. The Beta Centauri colonies told their imperial overlords to find a new hobby. 3 different species have stopped waiting for council approval to settle new worlds and just started building homes. So the revolution is spreading. Like wildfire, Jake confirmed. And every time some old guard species tries to put it down with force, they discover what the Zephyrians learned. Military power built for intimidation doesn't work against people who actually fight back. Lisa walked over to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human families were building new homes on worlds that alien bureaucrats had declared off-limits. Human merchants were trading freely with species that wanted to do business. Human children were growing up free from the fear that alien committees might decide their families didn't deserve to exist. "Any word from the Galactic Council?" she asked. Jake chuckled. "They're still meeting, still debating, still forming committees to study the possibility of forming other committees. Last I heard, they were trying to decide whether to officially condemn human actions or officially ignore human actions. That discussion has been going on for 2 months. And while they debate, the galaxy changes around them," Jake finished. "Admiral Sullivan's task forces are patrolling human space and keeping the peace. Our colonies are growing and prospering. Our trade agreements are bringing prosperity to everyone involved. And every day more species realize they don't need alien permission to live their lives." Lisa's communication system chimed with an incoming message. She read it quickly, then started laughing. "What is it?" Jake asked. "The Nebulan Collective wants to schedule a meeting to discuss the possibility of maybe considering whether they might want to think about establishing direct diplomatic relations with Earth," Lisa said. "The meeting would be held 6 months from now, after their song councils finish debating whether they should debate about it." "Are you going to accept?" Lisa shook her head. "I'm going to send them a message saying that if they want to talk to humans, they can call us when they're ready to have a conversation that lasts less than a year." Through the viewport, Earth turned slowly in space, blue and beautiful and free. The planet that had given birth to a species too stubborn to ask permission for basic rights now watched as that same stubborn independence spread across the galaxy. In the great council chambers on distant stations, alien bureaucrats still met and debated and formed committees, but their words carried no weight beyond their meeting rooms. The galaxy had learned a simple truth that humans had always known. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to stop talking about it and start fixing it. The age of endless discussions was over. The age of human determination had begun. And, across 1,000 worlds, beings who had never known freedom were learning what it meant to make their own choices and live with the consequences. The revolution was complete, and there was no going back.